What's up, everyone? Welcome to another UFC Quick Picks here on the Mayo Media Network. We have UFC Tampa on Saturday. It is our final event of 2024. Covington versus Buckley in the main event. Also, the final event for this series. Again, I mentioned this last week, but we will be concluding this series at the end of this year. Really appreciate everyone's support, as always, especially Pat and the team, and of course, you guys watching as well. So thank you so much. You can continue to find everything that I do on Establish the Run on Twitter, but Appley _T_P. But we will give it one last go here for the quick picks. It is my favorite cash game play of the week, tournament play, salary play, and a matchup I like as well. And my cash game play of the week, we're going down the board here. We're going all the way down the board here to Colby Covington in the main event at 7.2K. He is a pretty sizable underdog, plus 220 to win against Joaquin Buckley. And I understand if you don't really want to play him in tournaments, if you think Buckley is, deserving of a betting line like that. Fair enough, but the fight is still over 4.5 minus 150, which means we're most likely getting 5 rounds of Colby Covington, which means we're probably getting 10 to 20 takedown attempts from Colby Covington, which means we're probably getting a bunch of wrestling from Covington. We're probably getting some control. We're probably getting a handful of significant strikes. I mean, maybe Joaquin Buckley knocks him out in the first round, but that's why you can play some Buckley in tournaments. No problem with that. Buckley, some decision equity as well if Covington's going to look as passive, as limited as he did against Edwards in his most recent fight. I think we'll see a better version of Covington here. I also think it's a better matchup for him against Buckley, who has struggled to wrestle defensively throughout points in his UFC career. Also, Covington kind of has better metrics than him. But anyways, from a cash game perspective, at 7.2K, there's just not a lot of cheap fighters, not a lot of places to save salary. And I think Covington is one obvious option to do so, especially in 5 rounds as a wrestler. Covington has tremendous upside. And if this fight goes 5 rounds, I think he's going to score 50-plus points again, coming off a loss in which he scored 50 exactly, scored 49 in a 5-round loss to Usman, scored 57 in a 5-round loss to Usman. So Colby is one of the best points per dollar plays on the slate, especially from a cash game perspective. Easy place to start your cash constructions. All right, next up in tournaments, I am going to go with Billy Quarantillo at 8.4K. I think this is a really challenging slate from a tournament perspective. There are not a lot of fighters who rate out particularly well on this slate, and the fighters who were priced highly and I could give you Navajo Sterling as my tournament play of the week. Well, what's the fun in that? But I don't feel very comfortable with a lot of fighters in the 9K range either. So Quarantillo, what I like about him is that he's priced at 8.4K now, which is cheaper than we've seen him in a long while. His most recent fights, 8.6, 8.9, 8.7. He's been a bigger favorite in recent fights than he is in this fight. He's now only minus 148 to beat Cub Swanson. That's why we're getting a better DraftKings price tag. And I think despite his recent losses, I'm willing to go back to the well here on Quarantillo because he's a pace god. And that's why he's been heavily owned, heavily favored in other spots. He has wins of 131, 109, 141, 125. Like, Quarantillo can go out there and smash. He can land a ton of strikes. He can wrestle at a moderate rate. He can break opponents. And I think, although I'm not very confident in his form, I'm not very confident that he easily beats Cub Swanson. If Quarantillo does beat Cub Swanson, it's coming from pace. It's coming from a high volume of strikes. He'll probably mix in takedowns, and he is plus 175 to win inside the distance. So if you want to get ballsy, you can pivot to a fight like Tavares Grant, which is boomer bust, knockout upside, as is Daniel Marcos. Sean Woodson has some volume, as is Michael Johnson, boomer bust. So this range definitely has some upside, but has like massive bust risk as well. Quarantillo is more of a floor play in the sense where I think we're getting good pace, good volume out of him. But he's also priced cheaply, 8.4K, finishing equity, wrestling upside. Swanson is at 40 years old or approaching it. And, I like the youth advantage for Quarantillo. Going to be bigger and longer than Cub Swanson as well, I believe. Let me double check that. Yeah, a couple inches taller, same reach, but 7.36 significant strikes landed per minute, 4.67 of Swanson. Swanson defending takedowns at 63%. I think if Quarantillo wins, there's a decent chance he exceeds value. May only be 80 to 90 points and may not be an optimal score, but he also has 110, 120 point upside baked into his profile, which I like as well. All things considered, I will be on Quarantillo at 8.4K this week. All right, next up, my salary play of the week. This is also quite tough. I guess I could have just given Colby Covington out, like he's an obvious salary play as well. Outside of Covington, I think we're going to get some chalk in the mid to upper 7Ks. Maybe I'll talk about that in a little bit. Outside of that, if we're looking in the low 7Ks, Miles Johns, Jacoby, Bruno Silva, Close, Horth, Takas, these are quite limited fighters, quite limited from a win equity standpoint, very limited from a ceiling standpoint. I'm going to go with Piera Rodriguez, who I'm not picking to win, and who I don't think is a great fighter by any stretch, but I am willing to play Rodriguez on this slate at 7.4K. She's fighting Josephine Knutson, who is a really skilled striker and I think a pretty good prospect. And I think that's enough to carry her to victory against Piera Rodriguez. But the thing is, in Knutson's last fight against Pilastri, she gave up 3 takedowns on 3 attempts. And she just fell over too easily for my liking. She gave up 4.5 minutes of control. She nearly lost the fight, and she gave up submission threats. And Piera Rodriguez isn't great, but Piera Rodriguez will try and wrestle. She averages 3.1 takedowns per 15 minutes, coming off a terrible DQ loss, which I was heavy on Rodriguez there too. I don't want to get into it, but very disappointed we did not get that win. Otherwise, Piera Rodriguez has landed 3, 3, 5, 1, 1 takedowns. She was out wrestled by Jillian Robertson, no problem there, but landed 5 takedowns against Sam Hughes. If she's going out here and attempting 11 takedowns like she did against Sam Hughes, can she land 3 to 4 against Knutson? She might be able to, and from there, yeah, she could earn some control, hold Knutson down, and maybe take a decision. I don't think we're getting a lot of striking volume from Rodriguez. I don't think we're getting much finishing equity from Rodriguez. Let me double check. I think she's plus 525 to win inside the distance. Really poor. So finishing equity limited, striking limited, but Knutson's going to fight at a high pace. Rodriguez is going to be forced to exchange. I think she's going to be forced to wrestle, and she either has success wrestling or she does not. And I'm not certain which outcome it'll be. I lean toward the latter in that she loses the fight, but at 7.4K, we've already seen her score 93 in a decision. We've seen Knutson give up takedowns, and I think at the very least, it's a binary matchup with Rodriguez having a real path to victory on the ground, saves you salary, and I will be targeting her as a secondary option on this slate. All right, my matchup of the week, it is going to be Michael Johnson versus Otman Azaitar. One of my favorite matchups on this slate, no doubt. Michael Johnson is minus 217 to win. Azaitar plus 183 on DraftKings. Johnson 8.7K, Azaitar 7.5K. And I think there's a really good chance this fight ends early. Minus 210 inside the distance, minus 175 under 2.5 rounds. It's actually minus 150 over a round and a half, but Azaitar hasn't seen a round 2 since 2017. All 4 of his UFC fights have ended in round 1, 2 wins by knockout and 2 losses by knockout. And I don't see Zaitar improving. I don't think there's much to his game other than power striking. I think he's going to go out there and bang with Michael Johnson. He's either going to hurt Johnson badly early, or he's probably going to get hurt himself and get finished himself. And I lean toward the latter. I lean toward Michael Johnson because Johnson's a better boxer, faster hands, more technical, better wrestler, far better in extended fights, I believe. So I'm picking Michael Johnson to win. There's more bust risk on the Johnson side, obviously, in an extended fight at 8.7K. Though he did just score 89 points in a decision win against Flowers, where he wrestled, which I love to see. But he could score He has a 64-point decision win against Jacasey not that long ago. So Johnson could definitely bust. I hesitate to believe that Azaitar can last a full 3 rounds. And I think his primary upside comes from power. So I think someone's going to get hurt here. I really do. -210 ends inside the distance. I already mentioned that. Johnson, 8.7K. Not extremely trustworthy, but I like the matchup. I like the environment. We'll be on him for sure. Azaitar, less exciting because of his talent, but at 7.5K, his wins have scored 111 and 97, and I think we probably get 100+ point score again and an optimal result again if Azaitar wins. So a clear secondary target in my mind. Great matchup to target on DraftKings. All right, guys, that's going to do it for this week's UFC Quick Picks. Thank you so much for the support. You can follow me on Twitter, Brett Appley, _T_P, establishtheRun.com for all your DraftKings breakdowns needs. Enjoy the holiday season. I'll see you 2025. Best of luck and take care, everyone. Bye-bye.